invite our next speaker up here, who is Alexis Pazaitis. He able to elaborate more on what Michel already has been introducing. So Alexis Pazaitis is a research fellow at P2P Lab, an interdisciplinary research lab, makerspace at a spin-off of the P2P, so related to Michel Bouwen's project. I think Alex will specifically elaborate on peer-to-peer value. So I think it will at least give a bit more clarity on what Michel was bringing already.
More technicality.
Yeah.
Awesome. First, thanks for having me here, and no big surprise that coming from the P2P Foundation, I will try to mostly elaborate on Michel's ideas. It's yeah, it's working. Okay, so my field is basically technology governance, and I like to consider myself as a political economist. So I will try to elaborate more on the political economy of the blockchain and trying to keep it as least boring as possible. Am I doing something wrong? What's the feedback? Okay. So blockchain and P2P value creation in the Asian economy. And just give me a minute. Yeah, it works. So I'd like to simplify the idea of blockchain for us non-technical guys to distributed supercomputer that can help us solve the answers and the riddles of governance, ownership, and authority, and decentralized coordination, basically. And I'm getting the feeling that the more applications I see of the blockchain and the more advanced I see on the technological part, the answer to our riddles is 42. Of course, many of you recognize it's a reference to one of my favorite series of novels, is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Well, the theory is that a really intelligent alien civilization built one of the most brilliant supercomputers of the galaxy to provide the ultimate answer to life, the universe, and everything. And this computer's name was Odd. And he calculated the answer for about some tens of thousands of years. And after he gave the answer to him before an allured crowd, the answer was actually 42. And the crowd was kind of frustrated. But later he told the people not, because he explained that the thing with technology is that if you want to get useful answers, you should ask the right questions. And so that focused that instead of looking for the ultimate answer, to start working on the ultimate question. And my ultimate question today is one of value, or as Michel said, what is valuable? That is defined what is valuable in economics, that also to a large extent determines the general values of a social order. So the good illustrative example is what is known in economics as the water-diamond paradox. So it's easy to acknowledge that water is absolutely essential to our existence because we don't drink any. But at the same time, we value diamonds more than water. So there have been many different interpretations of this paradox, but the basic dichotomy based on the distinction of use value and exchange value, that is, value that is expressed when somebody is using goods or services, or the value that is expressed in people actually exchange commodities. And really early in the history of economic thought, Aristotle has been looking in depth into this issue. He argued value is expressed in exchange, but at the same time, it's the usability of the objects that creates the demand for them that is triggering the exchange. And so he approached it from an ethical point of view, trying to define justice in exchange, so for the just price, as was later interpreted by the medieval philosophers. And but later on came Adam Smith with the emergence of the industrial production, where we shifted to this system that commodity exchange was really at the core of it. So the approach of Adam Smith was he developed the labor theory of value, arguing that the commodities is basically the amount of labor that they employ in the action. So the argument was that when we're exchanging two commodities, basically exchanging the labor that has been employed in the production. But it means that these are different types of labor. And putting the emphasis on the questions that emerged was how to compare the different types of labor. So you had to equate them to an extent, and at the same time track of the value that had been created by the labor theory. And that's how we got to the world's most boring profession, which is accountant. And money and double entry bookkeeping were actually the propellers of the system that equating the different types of labor in order for the exchange to happen, and at the same time keep track of the money. And Karl Marx had a different approach that the classical and neoclassical theory, to a large extent, were not actually solving the problem of non-comparability, incomparability, as we say in economics, of the different types of labor. They were just assuming a kind of natural price, as Smith would call it, that would emerge of markets working efficiently. So we can acknowledge a shift from the just price, issue of the price that is just for the people contributing, to a price that is natural, a divine, efficient order working in markets. So Marx argued that there's a really dangerous side effect of this relation, that it is by the different types of labors, what we do is we actually strip labor of the qualitative aspects. And so we have what he called abstract labor. So this has been resulted to some serious contradictions and pitfalls within the system, which, if we fast forward all the way to the matrix, in the info economy, as we call it, we see those relations being exaggerated more. And the thing is that with information gaining importance, the aspects of social and economic and political life, we acknowledge as a sort of in all the levels of the economic system. That is, we have a change in the productive system, so the non-comparability of labor has become exaggerated because labor has become even more complex and even more difficult to track and even more qualitative. Actually, it's immaterial labor, as Negri would call it. And P2P productive relations emerge when people just connect with each other and create value together, and that entails a great variety of different contributions of value. And this is also extended to the consumption, with sharing and collaborative practices of non-rival goods emerging. And to get back to the ultimate questions things, so Satoshi Nakamoto asked one really specific question, so how to avoid double spending in a P2P electronic cash system. And he came up with a twofold answer of the problem. So one was the blockchain, a distributed ledger that was incorruptible, and proof of work, a consensus mechanism that we use to reward value and validate the transactions. So my questions in this extent would focus on how to and reward value in P2P production. And this emerges two questions. One is how to assess the different contributions of value instead of equitating them. So actually track the use value created, assess and reward it, and this how to keep track of the value. Money and double entry book have been quite efficient all the way through industrial economy. But information economy, we see that it is failing. So P2P value is practically beyond measure from the conventional means. So how can the questions on the blockchain go to how to actually utilize this technology to connect the two parts, the P2P, the P2P production of value on the production level and the sharing consumption of use values on the consumption level. So These are the two levels, and the blockchain could fill the middle part, which is actually the record value, what double entry bookkeeping has been doing all along on the industrial economy. So the idea, if we can use distributed ledgers to create a type of multiple entry bookkeeping that could keep track, reward the different contributions of value. Decentralized consensus, just kind of complementing the function of markets and creating a qualitative assessment of the types of labor deployed in goods and services. And at the end, a token-based system that will act as a measurement of value, just shifting the focus to just price from this divine natural order that the classical economists think. And this has been my presentation. These are notes of the photographs I have stolen from the internet. And this. Okay.